So again, welcome to our session on mastering the treatments editor. So we won't do the basics of what is the treatments editor, but just dive right in to a variety of different topics and tips and tricks, if you will, for using the editor. If I can get my presentation to close, there we go. All right, so I have just one of the protocols in our tutorial list, nothing particularly special here on the screen, but just wanted to have something to start with here for our treatment list. And the first thing I want to show is kind of how to manipulate what you see on the screen as far as the treatments editor goes. And we generally refer to that as the view in ARM. So each editor everywhere that you're looking in ARM, typically you can kind of control what you see, what doesn't need to be seen, and different things like that within the view options. And so the most basic level is simply saying there's something on my screen that I don't use or I don't want to see. Maybe it's taking up too much space, et cetera, et cetera. And you can hide certain fields from view. Maybe I'm taking a look at this minimum number of applications. I don't know what that is, but I for sure don't need it type of situation. You can simply just right click on the field that you don't need. And there's an option to hide that current field. And here in the treatments editor, a field really is the whole column. And that will just make that column go away. You can even hide something that you're actually using. So this description here, maybe I don't need to see, even though I have information. The nice thing is when we're hiding this, these columns, we're not deleting any information. We're not removing anything. So the information in this protocol is always still there. So if I wanted to get back that description or see what I have that, what other information I might not be seeing, you can go down to the properties panel at the bottom. Here mine was hidden by default. And if I use my little pin button in the corner, that'll actually make that panel stay visible for us. Then in the list, there's a box here for hidden fields. And this would be the list of columns that are currently not visible to us. So I can return that description back visible by simply choosing and selecting that from the hidden fields list. And now I can see that again. And as you can tell, we never deleted the information, even if we chose not to see it. So you can kind of manually do that, hiding and turning things on and off. You can also use some of these views. There's some views to the right here that kind of, I'll say, auto-calculate, if you will, and change the view based on certain criteria. So for example, one is all fields. So that basically just makes everything visible. And you can see my hidden fields list disappears because now there is nothing that's not hidden. As you can see, there's a lot of columns. So that's probably way overkill. But now we can see every single field. So if you're looking for something, I can put it in here, but I don't know where it's at. That's a good way just to be able to make sure you haven't overlooked a spot to put information. There's also the option here to hide empty fields. I'll go down a couple. So that will look at the current protocol or trial that you have open and hide any column that doesn't have any information at all. So that shrunk our view down quite a ways, as you can tell. Now we only see the information that is entered, and we don't see any other columns in our case. So I tend to do that a lot. The combination of clicking on all fields to make sure I don't miss anything at all that is hidden, and then hit the hide empty fields, and that brings it right down to shrink it essentially to only ones that have anything at all. There is also a hidden fields with information. So that would, I'll probably have to hide a couple of these here. Let's hide our formulation and such. That will do kind of the opposite of the last one. Look for any fields that are currently hidden but have something in them and make sure those are then visible. So that turns on those couple that we had just kind of manually hidden away. So again, another good way to find if there was anything that is recorded, but I just don't see yet, a nice way to make sure that I do notice that it's there. So that all is, like we said, kind of the view of setting what I'm looking at on the screen. You can kind of formalize or save that selection if you want to use it again. If you open up your view options, there's a button here on the left, and that'll bring up the whole list of what was visible and not. Sometimes this happens to me on my presentation. I don't know if it's a Zoom thing or just my other monitor. There's supposed to be a little checkbox here for each one of these rows, and then it would be on or off, depending on whether or not you can see it. For whatever reason, when I'm presenting, sometimes those just disappear on me, so I can't quite demonstrate that. But that really is our selection then of what is visible. And so what you can do to remember this list of what fields I have visible and which ones I am hiding, you can save that. And that allows you to make a file, give it a name, whatever you may want. So that way it's very easy to restore that exact list of columns you want to see in the future, whether it's next trial that I am looking at, or next season when I'm doing this same protocol working on and only want the certain fields that I'm seeing, or maybe for reporting. It typically comes in handy there as well if there's just certain information you would want on a report. Your report options can let you hook up and select a particular view to use. And then that view, maybe I'll save one real quick here just to have one in my list. You give it a file name. You say just give it a name that would match what the purpose would be. Why is it you're saving it in the first place? That makes for a good name, and it will just be on your computer where ARM typically is looking. And there could be a longer description if you want to remind yourself of why you made this in the first place. And now, maybe I'll just go back to like all fields or something so we can tell the difference in the view. This list of views where we had kind of these calculated ones, you'll find that file we saved is in that list. So just a simple one click can restore you right back to that specific set of columns that you would want. So that's a way just to kind of handle what information you're looking at, or what columns that you may be wanting to be filling in as you're working with the treatments editor. And by and large, that same kind of process works for pretty much any of the editors in ARM. A very similar situation, just different set of fields and information you might be putting in. Last little point here, just on the, what is it we're looking at and how does this look on our screen? There is an option I usually find in the right click menu. Doesn't really matter where you click here. There is an option to auto size column widths. So, for example, you can see some of my columns, the description has a lot more area to it. The other rate unit, a lot more length to it than I would really need. If I had a lot of information I'm trying to squeeze onto my screen, and it's taking up a lot of space, or conversely here, my application description is actually shorter than really what I need. Using the right click auto size column widths is a real nice way to condense everything down or expand out areas that you need. And so it just automatically, column by column, just does the fit, kind of like in Excel, where you can fit in your column lengths to fit what content you have. So that's a nice starting point. If you have a list in place, but it's kind of a mess, or trying to find what you're looking at. Again, doesn't really matter where you click, anywhere in the treatments table, using the right click. And by halfway down there, you have the auto size column widths. All right, so that's the view, controlling kind of what it is we're looking at, what we want to utilize. So let's proceed into some keyboard shortcuts. So let's just say I need another treatment, and actually I'll maybe insert a treatment between treatments 3 and 4. So I'm going to right click and insert treatment. And I want it to be the new number 4 and push our current one down. It'll give us a nice open line here to work with. So we'll just say maybe we have a product that's very similar to this one up here. Instead of having to kind of hand type and keep filling things in, there's some shortcuts that we can use. The first one is the single quote key, or the apostrophe. On my keyboard, it's right next to my enter key. The single quote there, what that's going to do when I leave this cell, whether I hit enter or tab or click somewhere else, it's going to copy the contents of the cell directly above it. So if I know this information is the same as the last one, I just use the single quote and hit enter or tab, and now it has copied what information was right above it. So I could real quickly go through what I know is going to be the same unit, it might have the same application code, etc. And again, if I'll do that one more time, a little slower, using the single quote apostrophe there, and then just leaving the cell. ARM will copy what is above it. Clear those out. Another shortcut for this situation where maybe almost everything's the same, it'd be much easier if I could just copy the entire row above it all at once. You can do the double quote, which is for my keyboard, at least it's the same key, but then I need to use the shift button. The double quote specifically in the treatment name column. When you do that and then press enter, it copies the entire line above it. So every piece of information is the exact same. And in my case, then maybe now all I have to do is adjust the little pieces that might be different this time around. Like maybe my rate's a little different, but everything else is the same. Again, that was the double quote. Specifically though, in this case, you have to be in treatment name, and that'll take the whole treatment line and copy it from the one directly above it. Another thing that can be handy as you're adding, filling in, making some additions to a list, using the right click, there is a insert treatment separators. That's kind of just a view level thing where we just insert a bunch of empty lines on the screen for us in between each treatment. So that'd be a lot easier if we were then trying to insert additional components, to treatment 2, perhaps I have an adjuvant or something like that. It makes it a lot easier than to have those little spaces in between. And if we don't use all of the spaces, it's really just a temporary thing to have those empty spots. So we won't have all of these spaces later on. I think even if I change editors and come back, we'll see for sure if I go here and then back to treatments, if they're gone. No, maybe I'm guessing then when I close the trial, it'll remove those empty treatment separators. So knowing that that empty line ARM remembers, well, I put that there just because we did this treatment separators, and so it'll take it out again and condense that list down so you don't have a bunch of blank spaces if you're trying to print a report and suddenly it's longer or something like that. So that's a good way if you're working on an existing list. Yep, I can delete that line out. All right, those are the two main keyboard shortcuts. There's not a whole lot of other ones, but another good shortcut for working on a list and kind of inserting other components. Let me clear up my separators here. I'll just delete these lines out so I don't have to close the entire trial to get rid of them. So another time saver shortcut. Let's imagine here that we've got this herbicide product and we need to have that adjuvant to be included in each one of these products. So here I've taken the time to fill in that adjuvant for my treatment number 5, but actually I'm going to need this same product really on all of these other herbicides as well. Instead of having to manually add that each time, we can do a paste special. So the first step would be to copy this line, the information that I want to duplicate onto several different treatments. So in my case, I clicked on this treatment line number and that highlights the entire row. Or in the right click, there's also a copy current treatment line. So that would grab that whole line either way. And now I'm going to right click and perform a paste special. So ARM will ask me which treatment numbers I want to paste that information that I've copied. So instead of having to do it one by one, I can choose all 3 of my other treatments, and ARM will paste that adjuvant information onto each one of those all in one go. So there, now we've replicated all that information in a couple of clicks instead of having to insert the separators and paste and paste and paste, etc. So just one more time to show that we wanted to copy the treatment line, the information we want to duplicate, and then just do a paste special. And choose the treatments that you want to add it to. In this case, I added it a second time again. So it could even be repeated over and over if you need it to. To point out some of the manipulations I'm doing here. Last time when I was trying to clear out all of those empty lines, I was using the delete line, which had just removed that one line from the editor. And so in this case, I've got 3 different lines as part of treatment 2. So if I just want to remove this 4th line and still keep the other 2 from a treatment, that's when I would right click and delete this line. So that's going to take out, I want to remove just 1 line. I don't need 2 or 3 lines, only 1 line to take out. And it will start at number 4 is the line I want to remove. So that takes out just that one, as opposed to if we wanted to take out all of the lines associated with treatment number 3. We no longer need treatment 3 at all. That would be delete treatment. And ARM kind of automatically is showing that if you're selecting treatment number 3, that's actually going to take all 3 of these lines and remove all of them. And so now that treatment 3 disappeared, we have a new treatment 3 because it now has renumbered, and now we only have 4 treatments instead of 5 that we had a moment ago. If you realize, oh, wait a minute, I was only trying to get rid of a line, of course, the undo, it can be a lifesaver to put that right back to where it was before we did that command. A good comment. For my example, of course, I'm kind of just making a mess of this list, and it's not really making a lot of sense. Carolyn's pointed out that I'm being a little hasty with my pasting because I pasted the adjuvant with a application code of BD, which does not match up with AC, which wouldn't make a lot of sense. So that's a great catch. And I guess I could make it a teachable moment of copy and pasting. That, of course, you want to review what you just pasted then to make sure that it makes sense. So yeah, you would want to make sure to update those since I had copied from treatment number 5 originally, which had a different cadence to its applications relative to these other herbicides. So that's a good catch for consistency's sake. I should have been a little more careful when I was copy and pasting the ones I wanted. So good catch. So that's some manipulation tricks. I guess we'll categorize all of those for kind of manipulating your treatment list here in a protocol or a trial. There's a lot more confirming in a trial, of course, if you're removing information from a trial with the treatments there, that makes a much bigger splash than here in just a protocol. Things are a lot more fluid, but both types of studies, you would be able to do all of these things in. All right, so the next topic I want to cover is the validation lists. One of the more common questions when people just start out with ARM, coming here to the treatment list, is what's with the treatment list? I don't see the ones that I need. So of course we don't have like a master source of the most common products used for the different disciplines. We don't have kind of a nice global system like we have for the crop codes or pest codes and things like that in other areas of ARM where we have that nice master list. Instead, we're just kind of stuck providing some examples and things like that in these lists. And really it's up to then the individual to build up their list of products that they work with. Sorry, before we get too far into that, there was a question about those adjuvant lines. And yes, you can certainly change the rate as well. So when we had copy and pasted, it simply was a shortcut to paste in that information, but there is no, let's say, active link. So although originally we had copied this adjuvant, we could certainly have you then change this information. And there's no still link that these can all still be different after we've pasted them. So yeah, you're definitely allowed to make any changes and adjustments after that paste. It can just be a nice shortcut. If there's a lot of information that is similar, you can save some time by using that paste and then make those small tweaks to changing the rate, things like that, after you've done that paste. And that makes it easy. Save some time on all of the information that was the same and then just make those slight differences when you're making those changes. Good question there. All right, so back on the list of treatments here. So the goal here is to add your products to this list. So, and actually that was exactly what ARM was asking me to do. So I probably should have left that question up there. So let me close the list once more. So after you have filled in a product that you use, you can start to populate the treatment list with this product. So I don't have to continue to hand enter all the information. Just return to the treatment name field and open up the validation list. Either you can use this drop-down button on the right, or the keyboard shortcut is F9. So now that when we have information in the line, when you bring up this list, ARM looks to see if that information is in your list already. And if it does not find it, it will offer to have you add that information to the list. So I'm going to say yes, and it can add my Stomper Plus product to my treatment list. Before we do that, there is an option to include active ingredients. So ARM can keep track of the active ingredients for this product and the concentration of them. We probably won't have time to dive into that particular function, but this is where you would be able to fill in that information when it gets put into the list. And you would just put each different ingredient in its own line, and then the concentration of that ingredient in the product. So when I click OK, then we have this product, and you'll notice it's not the entire line that we've added, but just the product and the formulation. So we don't kind of hard code the rate or application information, because of course that is very specific to the particular trial, but this product itself may not be. And so we may want to use that again and again. So we'll find that here in our list. So then if we were making a 6th treatment, and I'll have the herbicide list, then I can add that Stomper Plus without having to hand fill everything in. So I bring up the list now that I'm wanting to fill this in. I guess a few tricks here while we're using this list. If you know exactly what you want, for example, I'm trying to find that Stomper Plus. Of course, it's alphabetical, so I could scroll to try to find a Stomper in the list. A quick way to get down to a section that you want is to just start typing. So if I type the letter S, ARM will bring down that list and have it stop right at the very first line that has S in the first column in this list. And so actually, let me go back up to like the top. If I do ST, it'll bring me down to the first one with ST. And so I could just start typing Stomper Plus, and obviously as soon as it gets far enough into those letters, it'll find exactly the one you're looking for. So that's a quick way to navigate down to the item you're looking at. And then when we select that, it'll fill in all the other details that we had for that product. And of course, I can continue to fill in my treatment information. I maybe want to use that same rate I had already selected. So I'll just paste that information in, and the AC, etc. Coming back to that list, here in this case, that treatment name might be really all that you're looking for, but you can also search the list. Down here at the bottom, there are filter boxes. So maybe if we're looking for active ingredient, the gold box here in the corner of this filter box will just show you specifically the different values, which probably in our case here isn't going to do us a lot of good. But if we wanted to search and enter in a keyword to find all of the rows that have a particular ingredient. You can do that by either typing into this box, or you can right-click on the column that you want to look in and do a filter for. So maybe I want to find anything that has atrazine in it, making sure I can type it correctly. So I enter in the keyword and click OK, and it will filter down that list to only show, in this case, only show products that contain atrazine in it. Now, if that wasn't quite right, I can just remove my filter to get back to seeing everything in the list. So, maybe for this list, it's not super, some of these filtering doesn't make a whole lot of sense because by and large, you probably just know the product that you're looking for. But I like to show some of that for just in general, because it really fits for all of our validation lists. If we were looking in the formulation type, the same thing, maybe that was a better example to start with. If you don't specifically know the formulation type code that comes from SART, we could do the same thing here. Maybe I know I've got a granule, but I'm not quite sure which one I should use. Maybe I'll filter for in this term column for granule, and be able to then kind of compare and see which one is the one that I would need. So that filter for is great for narrowing down the list to see ones for a particular keyword. Then a list like this here, we're displaying a master list of all of the valid choices that we can choose in ARM, but perhaps there's really only a few that we commonly use based on the type of research that we're doing. We'll say maybe the fine granule ends up being the one we wanted in our case. Before you select it, you should do this little plus sign over here to add that item to your favorites list. You'll see there's a little confirmation here that pops up. And the favorites list is just a sub list of the ones that you use most often, or at least the ones that you select to be used most often. So this way, if I remove my filter, next time I'm working in the treatments list, let me just close this here. When I bring up the formulation type again, by default, it will show me my favorites list. And so now it'll only have that short list of items that I use most often. And then if I need something that isn't in that list, I can toggle over to see the whole full list to find what I might need. So that's a good time saver. So you're not always scrolling through the long list of all of the possible options, but instead only looking at the ones you typically use. So that favorites list is special to your computer here on ARM to keep track of and the ones that you want to pick from most often. So you're not always having to search through the full list. If you decide on your favorites list, now, of course, you could remove an item. There's the red X here, or down below here, you can delete. So that would just remove an item from my list. Maybe I'll add a few more items to my list just to show what'll happen then. If I decide, nope, I shouldn't have added that one to the list because I don't ever use it, you can simply remove it from your favorites list. Of course, it'll always still be here in the master list to use, but your favorites then is kind of your own subset that you can control and manipulate. So I do have a question. If we come back here to the treatment list, maybe some comments too. Just talking about the setting up of building your treatment list, and the comments really being that the AI is maybe more stable of something to use as the treatment name, instead of using maybe a trade name, which of course can change over time. I would say certainly that's possible. If that makes the most sense for you, you would probably basically just replicate the active ingredient name. Your treatment name would be what you have an active ingredient. You would also still want to put in the active ingredient information in these columns, or when it asks you the ingredients. There isn't an automatic switch in ARM just to say, hey, use the active ingredient as the name, but you could, as part of your way to build the treatment name list and how you fill in your protocols, that's certainly possible. One reason that maybe these examples don't do that would just be scenarios where maybe you're contracting out your research, and as the sponsor company, maybe that ingredient information shouldn't be available to the trialist that's actually performing the research. So there are a lot of scenarios instead where that treatment name ends up being the coded name, or top, if it's a top secret product that the company's still working on, it can get pretty hush hush and coded in the treatment name and things like that. So there's definitely varying levels to how you could use the treatment list. But I think that's a perfect point to the fact that you can make it your own. And yeah, if it makes a lot more sense to use that active ingredient, because that will always be the same then for you, definitely do that. Utilize the treatment name. And that, I think, kind of leads perfectly into your second question, maybe why we don't have a favorites list. So we don't have, I guess in some regards, this is your favorites list. We don't have a master list where everyone has kind of a baseline list from ARM that everyone is looking at. In part because there's just no, there's not some entity out there that's kind of keeping track of everything all nicely for us. Partially because, as I said, some research, it's the cutting edge companies just rolling it out or trying to figure it out. So of course they wouldn't use that list. That said, there's definitely a lot of products out there that just are, ones everyone uses, but we just don't have a source that just has all of those sitting there nicely for us to use and bring into ARM. So that's the reason why there's no master list here. So therefore, there's not a favorites list of just choosing sub items. Instead, this is kind of a scratch pad and open canvas for you, the individual ARM user, to fill in. So some good questions, and they're super common. It would really be nice to have an awesome list fleshed out to save a lot of work for those that are using products that are are known out there, but we just don't have that that connection necessarily. It'd be a lot of work to have someone be constantly scouring the markets there to keep that list up to date and accurate. So. It does segue kind of nicely into the idea, of course, of all this work that we're putting into our treatment list and adding in all of our products and making it fantastic to save us time and to make sure all of our treatments across our different studies are put in the same way. You may want to, of course, share this list with others in the company. So that way, if you have multiple people in ARM making studies, you'll want, of course, to maybe not replicate all of that effort. So every individual has to do that work because, of course, this list that we're working on is specific to just my computer. But there are a few ways you can share your lists, and it wouldn't just have to be this product list, but plenty of other lists, your favorites lists, the different files that you might save, like my treatment view we did a little earlier. All of those things that you do to kind of customize your ARM, it's possible to share those with others in your company. It's gonna be a real great time saver, a great standardization tool for people to be all working from the same list. Everyone's doing things the same way instead of having just slight variations that that may occur as people do things differently in their studies. So what we have, maybe a few different, there's really kind of a few different options that you can do to share the lists. And really it varies. You can do kind of a one-time transfer. So the common example I give is maybe I've got a new employee, somebody new to the team that's just joining our company. And be sure nice for them not to just be staring at blank lists, but maybe use my list, or whoever in the group has the most ARM experience, who's got the best list, who's been doing this the longest type of thing. The trick to do that would simply be to have that we'll call them the master person, the one that's got all the good files and lists. They could simply use the migration tool, actually. So that migration tool originally, in all of the dialogues are talking about moving your ARM to a new computer, and will want to copy all of your lists and things from your current computer to put on the new one. But that same idea would apply to just taking all of those lists and copying them to someone else's computer as well. So that same tool can work to just simply, of course, I can create this migration package here, but then not actually get rid of ARM on my computer, but just give that package to a colleague, and they can load that into their ARM, and that will replace all of their lists on their computer, which, if they're brand new, they're all empty and nothing good in them. Replace it with the copies of the lists on my computer. So kind of a one-time copy, get somebody up to speed, things like that. You can use that migration package for. If you want to get more sophisticated and maybe say, well, we're continually adding more things, we've got several different people all involved, there is a way to actually basically be working from the same list and have those particular lists that you're looking at being synced across multiple people's computers. Basically, the easiest way is just to copy those lists, and we put them out onto something like a Dropbox or a network drive, some location that is synced or shared across everyone in the company. And we can put those files out in that location and then have each individual's ARM hook up to that new location where those lists are. And so now everyone is kind of connected to that same file that's on the network or being synced. So as changes are made, everyone can see those. It's a pretty easy setup. It would be something you'd want to contact us for. I've got some pretty basic instructions. There's usually just 2-3 emails back and forth to figure out the path. Here's the instructions, and you're up and running. It's fairly slick, but it's best to just give our support box a shout, and we can kind of help you with that if it's something you'd like to do. But it's a great way to save some time and really upgrade your standardization as you think about if you've got multiple ARM users in your group, getting everyone on the same page. Okay, I think that covers the validation lists very nicely. Next topic would be some study rules. Just wanting to highlight ones here on this treatment list that may be useful. From a protocol writing standpoint, once you've filled in your list, maybe most especially if we're sending this on to a contracted researcher, there might be some. I think the two most common functions you might want to consider in that scenario would be to either lock down some of this information if there's something that cannot change and we don't want to have accidentally changed in the treatment list. We can use a study rule to lock the information so it cannot be edited. Or the other one that might be more common, perhaps, or a safer one, it's kind of more of a slam dunk of when you'd want to use it or not. Sometimes it can be a little tricky for locking fields, but to hide information, we also have a study rule that you can hide an entire column of information if needed. So to start with the hiding, it kind of ties back to our comments about the AI information, or where to put that in the list, and using trade names and things like that. If you're in a situation where your products that you're testing, there's some confidential element to it. Some of the information about the product is confidential. Maybe only our company should know the ingredients, but we do want the ingredients in here. So, as we receive the trials back, of course, we want that information available to us, but the CRO definitely should not know that. There is the ability to hide a column from other people. So probably the most common way to do that would be to put that confidential information in something like the description. It's just kind of an open-ended field where you can really put in anything. You have quite a few characters that can go in there. So I'll just copy and say, oh yeah, here's a bunch of confidential information that I wouldn't want those researchers to see if I'm the sponsor here. What I can do then is in that description column, I'll right click and turn on a hidden field study rule. And so part of defining that rule is to define who should this field be hidden from. So I've got two options. It will be hidden if not me, or if not in my company. So this will be based on the license of the person adding this rule. So probably most common thing would be if not in my company. So that way, anyone else, any of my colleagues in my group, if they open this protocol, they'll be able to see the confidential information here. But if I turn this on, then this column, the entire description column here, will be hidden if anyone else that's not in the same company as me opens this protocol up. And the same thing for it, if they open this protocol and create a trial, when we create a trial, this study rule will also be in the trial. So the same thing for the trial, then this column, all of this confidential information will be hidden. It will not be visible on the screen. It will not be available in the hidden field to make visible. It will be completely not able to be seen by anyone else who'd open that trial or protocol. And just to show, I did right click. So that shows up in the list of study rules. So of course, if you wanted to undo that, how do I get that back? If I accidentally hide something, that is this hidden field study rule. And we have specifically chosen to turn off the description field if you're not in my company. So I have seen where some groups have hidden treatment name for that same reason. But I think the recommended approach would be to put the confidential information in something like description. That's really easy to make it not be seen. The treatment name is just so commonly used that it looks very odd, and can confuse the trialist if there's no treatment name at all. It's a little disorienting. So that's the recommended approach, at least that I've seen, to reduce confusion, is to put the most important information into something like description and then make that hidden. So we still have it available in our company when we're getting our trials back, want to do summaries, things like that. That information is here in the trial, but or protocol as we're looking at here, but it won't be seen when opened by somebody else. The other option that we have for study rules would be to lock information. So maybe my formulation type needs to be locked. That would be under the required heading. You can lock, and there's kind of two different options. You can lock either the field. So here I've clicked into formulation type. So I want to lock this column. I want to lock the formulation type information. So that is locking the field to prevent edits. And you could see that there might be a little hard to see, but this EC is now grayed out. And when I click in there, there's a little lock symbol to show that specifically this field here, this column for treatment line number 4 has been locked. So we can't change it. Can't change the contents of that value. If I go to my rules editor to take a look at that, since I was clicked into just one specific line, it has just treatment line 4 is the only one that it applies to. I can certainly type in here, oops. There, it didn't like my space the first time, to add additional lines, or you could see if you delete and leave that empty, it switches to all. So now this will affect all treatment lines, basically meaning the entire column. If I go back, that entire column now has been locked. So that way, no one can adjust and change these formulation type value. This one might take a little nuance as to when it might be a good idea to lock. You certainly don't want to have problems during the trial season where they need to, if it's something that possibly potentially could change in one scenario, and luck will have it that that'll happen, and then and then the trialist would need to send back the trial to the protocol owner in order to remove that rule or make that adjustment, because only the protocol owner then has the ability to remove this rule or make the change to that content. So sometimes you can overdo it, and get yourself into some trouble. There's a question here about copy and pasting that treatment list into a new protocol. Does the rules come with it? So let's just grab a list. And if I just open another ARM up here. New protocol. I know there's a lot of logic in the merge, but I wanted to paste to make sure that we are right here. So when I paste that in, the study rule does not come with in just a simple grabbing of the treatment lines and copy and pasting. A better resource if you're wanting to replicate what I've done here. This is maybe last year's trial or last year's protocol that we had set up, and we want to have we have a similar list, and we really like everything we had set up. Instead of just simply copy pasting, you use the merge. So under the tools menu, there's a merge, and that will allow us. Here, let me delete all these treatments real quick before I do that. Delete all those out. I'll need to save this protocol quickly here. Then merging allows us to choose a protocol in this case to copy from. And I was using this 2020 tutorial, so that's the one open on the other screen. And I can bring in that treatment list. And when you do that, that brings in all of the rules associated with it as well. So you can see that now those locked rules and such are here, in addition to that entire treatment list that was in that other study. So great question there. Using the merge would be a little more powerful than just simply copying some treatment lines to do that. Real quick, so we showed copying this field, which is really kind of a column-based locking. You could also lock an entire treatment line, so kind of looking horizontally. So if I'm right-clicking and in that required here, you can lock a treatment line to prevent edits. So there you can see this entire treatment line 7 now has been locked from being changed, or you can lock the whole treatment. So if I require and lock treatment, that of course is going to grab any of the component or all of the components together. So the entire treatment number 2 is totally locked, as opposed to here where it was just one component of treatment 4 is locked. I think the best case, so here I probably should not have been choosing the required. Required is going to absolutely no way are you able to change that information. One slightly softer version of that would be if you use recommended. And the only difference, it still is locking fields and doing all of those same things we just did, but the difference between required and recommended is that required will 100% make it impossible to change that content. If you set it to recommended, then the trialist could, if they click into that field to try to change it, there'll be a dialog that pops up and says there's a recommended rule to not change this information. And so that kind of a warning to say that, hey, this shouldn't be changed, obviously, unless there's a very specific reason to do so. And so then they would have to click OK, and then they would be able to change that value. So that recommended just becomes a communication to say, hey, I don't want you touching this unless you have a very good reason to do so. Whereas the required is literally you cannot, and ARM won't let you. So that would be the difference between those two. And again, want to make sure if there's any scenario you could imagine that maybe this value could need to be changed, then you might not want to lock it, or at least use a recommended to give that slight flexibility, so that way in the middle of the season we don't have a mess. All right, well, we kind of ran ourselves out of time here. Hopefully you picked up some useful tricks here. If you have any questions, of course, just let us know. Hopefully we'll be seeing you again at a future webinar. So thanks all for joining and the good questions and discussion throughout this session today. So thank you all.